Okay guys, some of you said that you're having a little trouble with this, so the easiest way is for me to do them one at a time, and you can fast forward this video to the ones you actually need. So I'm going to start with the first one, and I'm going to try to fit it in this spot, but I bet you I'm going to run out of space. So the first one, I'm going to get rid of the 7. Okay, and then I'm going to do 2 steps in one, so I'm going to take half of 6, which is 3, and square it, which becomes 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides, which gives me 2 over here. So this is going to say x plus 3 squared when I factor it equals 2. I square root both sides, so I'm going to get x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 2. And if I move the 3 to the other side, I'm going to get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 2. I am not sure how to shrink this. Let's see. Nope, I have no idea what I'm doing. Sorry. I'm making it more complicated. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so I go over to my answers. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 2 is right here. So I'm going to highlight that. This is the answer to the first one. Okay, moving on to the next one, I'm going to go to the right. All right, so then I'm going to do x squared plus 14x. If I move the 21 to the other side, it's going to say negative 21. So I take half of 14, which is 7, and I square that, which is 49. Okay, so on the left-hand side, if I were going to factor that trinomial, I'm looking for what multiplies to 49 that adds to 14, and that would be positive 7. So this side is going to say x plus 7 squared equals, and if I do negative 21 plus 49, I get 28. Now I square root both sides, so this is x plus 7, equals plus or minus the square root of 28. Now, if I move the 7 over, I get a negative. But the problem here is some of you were saying that you couldn't find this answer, and that's because we have to break down the 28. So I'm going to break down the 28. I'm going to use a perfect square. So the biggest perfect square that goes into 28 is 4 and 7. And then the 4 is going to become a 2 when I take the square root. And I think that answer is over on the right. Negative 7 plus or minus. There it is right there. Okay, I'm going to keep going. 19. So I'm going to move the 19. X squared minus 10x equals negative 19. So half of 10 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. Okay, now you're thinking about what multiplies to 25 that adds to negative 10, and that gives me negative 5, so minus 5 squared. And negative 19 plus 25 is 6. Square root, x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 6. And then when I move the 5 to the other side so that I get it to say x equals, it becomes negative because I'm subtracting it. So negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 6. Why do I have 5? Oh, it is 5 because, look at, I made a mistake. Let's fix it. Right here, that's supposed to say x minus 5. Sorry about that. And if I move it to the other side, it will now say positive. Okay, so this one is my answer. All right, next one. I move the 3, so x squared, x squared minus 10x equals 3. Half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25. So this one is x minus 5 2 times equals 28 plus 3 is 31. The good news about that is 31 can't be broken down, which means that that's going to be in my answer. X minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 31. So I need to add the 5 to the other side so it becomes positive. So it's 5 plus or minus the square root of 31. And what happened here? I did it again. I was supposed to add 25 to both sides. What did I add to both sides? I added 28. I kind of was adding those together in my head. Sorry, guys. So this is 28. Okay, I'm going to start this whole part over because I bet I confused you. So underneath the square root, it's not supposed to say 31. It's supposed to say 28. And we already broke down 28 in the question above it. You see how the 28 became a 4 and a 7, which became 2 square root 7. So that is really what I was looking for. 5 plus or minus 2 square root 7 is right there. Okay. The next one. So half of 4 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So this is going to say x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals negative 2 plus 4. I moved the 2 to the other side. So if I factor the left, it's x minus 2 2 times equals 2. And then I square root both sides. I get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 2. And I just move the 2 over, so it's x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 2. And that's simple, so that should be over there. There it is. That guy right there. Okay. I'm sorry that I'm making this sloppy and I'm going fast. I just know that none of you want to watch a 10-minute video or 15-minute video of me doing this. But if you need help on a couple questions, it's a good idea to just fast forward to the ones you need help with, take a look at them, and then you can stop the video. Okay, so I moved the 5. Half of 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1, so I'm going to add that to both sides. This is going to end up factoring into x minus 1 2 times equals 6. Good news is 6 can't be simplified, so I just move the 1 over and make it positive. And that should be my answer on the right. 1 plus or minus, there it is at the bottom. Okay, so it's there, but if it needs to be simplified, so clearly, like the next one we're going to do, we're going to have a fraction because half of 3 is 1.5, right? And then when I square that, so I'm going to have a fraction or a decimal. It doesn't matter what you do with it. Just make sure you can rewrite it. So let's talk about this one. This one's probably giving some of you a hard time. So it's going to say x squared minus 3x, and we're going to move the 1 over to the other side to make it negative. So half of 3 is 1.5, and 1.5 squared is 2.25, or 9 over 4. Now, the reason I'm going to keep it 9 over 4 is because it's easier to factor, and I also know that my answers have fractions, so I'm going to keep it as a fraction. So this is going to say x minus 3 over 2 squared, because half of 3 is 1.5, so you could also have 1.5 in there. And then 9/4, we're going to do negative 1 plus 9/4, and that's going to give me 5/4 over here. So I'm going to square root both sides. And then I'm going to get x minus 3/2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5/4. So the only thing I have to do is add the 3/2 to the other side. It's not any more work. I just have to keep the fraction, 5/4, my fault, 5/4. So that should be my answer over here. Oh, so if you notice, it says the square root of 5, but it doesn't have a 4, because what is the square root of 4? The square root of 4, I can actually take the square root and that becomes a 2. So it's really the square root of 5 over 2. So we're looking for that one, which is the top. So see, some of these are tricky. Okay, the next one's going to work out okay for us because 4 can be broken in half. So x squared plus 4x. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Move the 6 over and add 4 to both sides. So this is x plus 2 squared equals 10. And then we take square root. So x plus 2 equals the plus or minus radical 10, which is going to move the 2 over and make it negative. And I can't break down 10, so 10 should be there. Negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 10 is right here. Okay, this has got to be the next one that gives me that fraction. So I bet that 57 over 2 is going to be our ugly answer. Let's see. So x squared plus 5x equals 8. So half of 5 is 5 over 2, and 5 over 2 squared is 6.25, or 25 over 4. I basically just squared the 5 and I squared the 2. So I'm going to add the fraction to both sides. So when I go to factor this side, it's really just half the middle. So it's 5 over 2 two times. And then I need to do 25 over 4 plus 8, which gives me 14.5, or 57 over 4. And you notice that answer has 57 over 2 because when we take the square root of both sides, that 4 is a perfect square. So it's going to say the square root of 57 over 2 plus or minus. So all I'm going to do is move the 5 halves to the other side and subtract it. And it's going to say plus or minus the square root of 57 over 2. I know it looks really ugly. Why would you want to leave an answer like that?